The day had begun like any other, yet there was a strange heaviness in the air that I couldn't ignore. I had known the truth for weeks, maybe even months. The small inconsistencies, the hushed phone calls, the late nights she could never explain. Caroline had tried to hide her affair, believing she was clever, believing she was untouchable. But I had watched quietly, gathered evidence, and observed her closely, all while keeping my composure. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't desperate. I was calculating, patient, letting the storm build until the timing was perfect. And now, as I watched her walk into the room, confident and unaware, I knew it was time to deliver a lesson she never expected to learn. She finally asked the question I had been waiting for. Her voice trembled slightly with fear, confusion, and the faintest hint of hope. "Why don't you want me anymore?" she asked, her eyes searching mine for familiar warmth, forgiveness, the reassurance she assumed was still there. I still felt something, but I was no longer that man. I noticed the brief flicker of panic in her pupils, the micro-expressions revealing the realization that she may have pushed too far. Her carefully built arrogance, the same arrogance that allowed her to betray me so easily, began to crack. I knew then that my calm, measured response would strike harder than anger ever could. I smiled. Not a sneer, not a grimace, just a slow, quiet, unshakable smile that showed how much control I had reclaimed. "Because you already gave what was mine to someone else," I said, each word deliberate, heavy with truth and betrayal. The effect was instant. Her face froze mid-expression, confusion appearing first, then disbelief, followed by a creeping panic she couldn't hide. She understood immediately that I had known everything, that my calm was not ignorance, but awareness, that my patience was not weakness, but quiet strength. For a brief, suspended moment, she couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, couldn't even blink fast enough to escape the realization that she had miscalculated completely. Her next words came out as a broken whisper, tentative, desperate. I I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, her voice shaking as she searched for excuses, trying to rewind time, trying to undo the damage she had caused. But my silence answered her more powerfully than any argument ever could. I didn't need to defend myself. I didn't need to explain how I had discovered everything. The truth was obvious, carried in my expression, my posture, the calm assurance of a man who no longer needed her presence in his life. Every word she spoke fell flat, echoing uselessly against the solid walls of my resolve. She searched my eyes, pleading, hoping for hesitation, maybe a crack of vulnerability she could use again. But I offered none. My gaze remained steady and unyielding, reflecting the clarity of a man who had been wronged but refused to be broken. The room seemed to close in as her bravado dissolved completely. The woman who once manipulated with ease now trembled beneath the quiet weight of truth. Every thought she believed would bring reconciliation collapsed. Every assumption she relied on shattered in that single calm moment. Minutes dragged as panic took hold. She sat down, shaking slightly, drained by the collision of her recklessness with my unwavering resolve. She had underestimated the quiet power of observation, the patient gathering of evidence, the devastating force of calm authority. Now, with every attempt at justification failing, she was left facing the consequences of her own choices. What she had given away, my trust, my heart, my devotion, could never be returned, and she felt that reality pressing down on her. Her apologies followed, soft and broken, genuine in a way she rarely allowed herself to be. She tried to explain, to rationalize, to soften the betrayal with words, but they carried no weight. The damage was done. The lesson had been delivered, and my calm, collected presence made it undeniable. She had overstepped, miscalculated, and was now fully exposed to the consequences of her actions. Every micro-expression, every subtle tremor, Every unsteady movement reminded her that her betrayal had left a permanent mark. By the end of the night, she was subdued, quiet, and fully aware that our relationship could never return to what it once was. My calm had been the hammer, the undeniable force that shattered her assumptions and left her humbled. She learned that giving what is sacred to another creates an irreversible void, and that a man who protects what is his cannot be swayed by charm, excuses, or hope. The lesson was clear, and it would stay with her forever. I walked away from that conversation with nothing but a quiet sense of closure. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to argue. I didn't need to chase her. The calm, measured delivery of the truth had been more powerful than any confrontation, more lasting than any pleading, and infinitely more satisfying than revenge could ever be. She had faced the consequences of her choices, and I had preserved my integrity and strength throughout. As the night came to an end, her presence lingered like a shadow of regret, but I didn't feel the need to engage with it. The message had been delivered, the lesson had been absorbed, and my calm, composed response had spoken louder than any shouting, confrontation, or dramatic display ever could. She had underestimated me, and she would never make that mistake again. And in that knowledge, I found a quiet satisfaction that carried me through the night and far beyond.